ChaldoAssyrians once accounted for a full third of Iraq's population, but these ancient people have declined steadily due to centuries of persecution. Well, now the Christian minority is again under fire, this time from terrorists, and experts fear that violence will keep many ChaldoAssyrians away from the polls next Sunday. Joining us from Chicago with more details on this subject is John Michael. He is the president of the Assyrian Academic Society. Sir, we thank you for coming in to talk to us. Talk to us about the population of ChaldoAssyrians. What measure of the population do they make in Iraq now?
Estimates are very difficult to come by, partly because in the past ChaldoAssyrians were not even counted in the census. However, we estimate there are about 7 to 10% of the population. Because of disproportionate persecution, though, a large percentage have left, perhaps up to half of the people. And so in the diaspora, maybe half of the population resides primarily in the United States, Europe, and other Middle Eastern countries.
So a full 7 to 10% of the population now, correct?
Correct.
Within the country. And is there a particular region or geographical location in which this community is located, or are they scattered throughout the country?
The major population centers are around Baghdad, Mosul, Kirkuk, and what we call the Nineveh Plain outside of Mosul, centered around the historically ancient Assyrian capital of Nineveh.
So it would seem that if the population is concentrated in those areas, security might not be a different but still difficult issue for that community as opposed to any other, right?
Well, there are entire communities which are at risk, and we share in the concern for security for all Iraqis. However, there seems to be a particular pattern of targeting of ChaldoAssyrian Christians, and especially in some of the areas like Baghdad and Mosul, which we fear will really limit the voter turnout in the upcoming elections.
I want to talk about the recent kidnapping recently. The recent kidnapping, is it that the church is central to life for the ChaldoAssyrian who lives in Iraq, or is this a mechanism to just threaten people in general?
Well, the church is central, and since August 1st, the beginning of a terror campaign, 6 churches were bombed in the country. October, November, and December saw further church bombings, and last January 17th, there was the kidnapping of the Archbishop, which you referred to, of the Syriac Catholic Church in Mosul. He was released one day later after international pressure was put on the kidnappers to release him. But it was viewed widely by the community as a threat and intimidation, especially in light of upcoming elections, and also in a way to sort of drive out many of the ChaldoAssyrians from the area. Since August, over 40,000 people have left to neighboring countries. The fear is that these people may never come back.
You've spoken on this issue and said that ChaldoAssyrians in Iraq are democratically disenfranchised. What did you mean by that?
Well, we're concerned that there are 2 segments of our population in the country and outside the country that need to be voting in this election. Security concerns, we feel, will limit voter turnout in Iraq itself. We have appealed to the Iraqi government and to the coalition forces to help with security. We've asked for a police force manned by ChaldoAssyrians to enable them to guard the villages, the towns, the institutions, the churches. We haven't had a favorable response at this point. Outside the country, we're very concerned about the process by which the election is being carried out. The International Organization for Migration, the IOM, which is running the registration and election, we feel has been discriminatorily acting to designate polling places, especially in the United States.
Well, they say
as an example...
I'm sorry, they just say they haven't had time to work up a logical system west of the Mississippi, as there's only one polling area in all of the West, and that's California.
That's correct. You have to look at the history of how they established it. They first designated Washington, D.C., Detroit, and Los Angeles as the polling centers. After a community outcry, they included Chicago, which is the 2nd largest demographic group of Iraqi Americans. They were initially going to ignore Chicago. Then they've ignored San Diego with 25 to 30,000 people. They've ignored the 4th largest, the San Francisco, San Jose, Modesto, Turlock area in Northern California, and the 5th largest, Arizona. All of those are predominantly ChaldoAssyrian Christian. The ChaldoAssyrians, because of disproportionate persecution, make up 85 to 90% of Iraqi Americans. Even in Detroit, where they did put a polling place, the polling place is minutes away from the predominantly Arab neighborhoods and over an hour's drive from the predominantly Christian areas. And another aspect is that they added a polling place in Nashville, Tennessee, where there are maybe no more than 2,000 predominantly Kurdish Iraqi Americans. So we view this as a way that we are going to be marginalized and disenfranchised through, ironically, a democratic process.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. John Michael with the Assyrian Academic Society, thanks for shedding light on this for us.